Welcome to this special edition podcast where we'll delve into the future of training operations in the vibrant DACH market. I'm joined by learning industry experts Sven Elbert, Senior Analyst at Fosway Group, Europe's #1 HR Industry Analyst, and Stephan Pineau, CEO at Training Orchestra, leading global provider of training management software. So in this episode, we're going to explore the ever-evolving landscape of in-presence training, otherwise known as instructor-led training or ILT, and its key role in the region's learning ecosystem and the technologies that streamline the often complex operations and processes that go along with it, including strategic approaches that are reshaping the future. So let's dive in. Hi, Sven. Hi, Stephan. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for the introduction. I'm very excited to have this conversation with Sven today.
Yeah, very excited too. Hi, Jen. Hi, Stephan. Good to meet you.
So Sven, we had an interesting conversation earlier about the history of training operations in the DACH market, and I'd love to delve into that a little bit more. So please tell us, what is training operations and what's the role of learning technology in the process?
Yeah, training operations. So we see the word operations being added to all sorts of things, HR operations, people operations, that makes its way into, organizational structures, names of departments and that kind of thing. In Germany, we have this, and I kind of wanted to bring this, we have this very long word, Veranstaltungsmanagement, which is kind of an interesting, maybe 25-year-old kind of creation, which talks about event management. And back in the days, it was really, organizing these in-presence kind of events. Academies were, springing up at that time. And even 5 years ago, when it was still very much in presence and less virtual, I think this is now evolving, this term, and maybe not as present, and maybe this new term training operations is coming to the forefront, where it's basically still covering, I guess, a lot of these operational aspects of organizing training, managing enrollment, having a good experience for the learners during the process, making sure that everything works smoothly, managing all the logistics around it, but also looking at what are maybe some of the needs on a higher level that we need to cater for. What resources do we need? The budgets, the costs, the financial side of things is becoming increasingly important. I mean, we are in a recession now, so that is certainly something where more organizations are focusing on. And that is part of this new idea of training operations, analytics, looking at learning outcomes, not just the happy sheets, but really what impact does it have on the business? What new skills are getting created for the employees working for the company and those kind of things, and this continuous improvement around it. So I think that these are really important aspects of the concept. The Germans like to use English terms, right? So having an English term means that you have a little bit of fuzziness, a bit of cloudiness around it, and that's why I think we over here like to use these kind of terms for something new and innovative, right?
Okay, I will try then to also answer to the same question, maybe explaining, what's the role of Training Orchestra when it's time to manage the training operation, and, what are the needs on the market and the role of the different learning technologies. So we at Training Orchestra, we provide a system designed to manage training operations. So it's all about scheduling the classes, managing the availability of the trainers, tracking the cost, choosing the best available trainer, managing also the complexity of an extended enterprise. We'll come back on that, or managing training regulations. So it's pretty complex to manage a training operation, and that's really the focus of Training Orchestra. So we are one of the specialists who are positioned as a strategic leader on the Fosway 9 grid. It's 3 years in a row that we are positioned as a strategic leader. And what is extremely interesting is that you have only 3 actors in the position as a strategic leader. 2 specialists and 1 suite, which is very interesting because it explains so clearly the positioning of Training Orchestra. So the suite is positioned as a strategic leader, is a learning management system, is an LMS. And usually the two main limitations, so the LMS are very important. They help really transform the learning, moving progressively from 100% of instructor-led training to also embedded e-learning courses, and it has been a big change. But some limitations where the LMS may be light, maybe on the user-learner experience. I should not say user experience, but learner experience. That's why you have LXP, and it's a specialist, And the second limitation is all about managing in-person training, in-presence training, instructor-led training, or virtual instructor-led training, when it's time to schedule the classes, manage the resource, track the cost, and more. All that is happening in Excel spreadsheet and Outlook. So we complement those two specialists, complement, the LMS. On the front end, you'll find the LXP, or the one in charge of the learner experience, complementing the LMS. And on the back end, and that's where we are at Training Orchestra, we provide a training management system designed to really manage instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training. So we complement each other and do not overlap, Jennifer and Sven.
Yeah, I guess if I maybe can add to that. So I guess depending on the actual solutions a company is using, there are, quite a few examples of companies where they use multiple pieces of technology, maybe a learning management system that they have acquired some years ago, and then kind of overlaid it with some specialist players. So it can work as an LXP or as a training management system. But I guess that really depends on the actual systems that the company has in place and how the organization is configuring them. It will also depend on how you understand these labels. There's a lot of fuzziness, I guess, around the label LXP. We found that there was a big confusion in the market for a long time around that term in particular. It was, maybe a bit overused, used in different ways from different kinds of providers. So therefore, at Fosway, we have really kind of tried to find some other terms that make a bit more sense in terms of the suite, covering like all these different needs, learning needs that a company has. So from A to Z, from start to finish, across all target groups. And that is one category of solutions. And the other category of solution is specialists that then focus on one particular thing and do that really, really well. So I guess that is the way in which we think about these things. On, I guess, the different segments in the market, like you said, Stephan, Training Orchestra is classified on the 9 grid as a specialist. So in the mid-market, obviously, organizations tend to go for solutions, maybe just one system, have it all in one that kind of covers all their needs. They don't have maybe as sophisticated needs that some of these very big, large corporations might have, or they maybe don't have a big training academy. So there's obviously different types of organizations. And so this idea of suites and specialists allows us to kind of look at, when we talk to clients about their ecosystem, we can use these terms to help them find the right solutions. And in fact, in very large organizations, you actually find an entire ecosystem of learning solutions. Some organizations have 3, have 10, have even 20 or 25 systems globally, which all of in itself is kind of a nightmare. So they're trying to reduce that to a single system. And that is obviously desirable, but sometimes also not realistic, because there's reasons why you might have actually a couple. So reducing to 2, maybe 3 is already helping those very large organizations to save some significant cost and consolidate the space. So I think that is maybe something I can add to that.
Yes, I think it's very, very smart from Fosway to have done, and it makes me think also about the doctors. So sometimes you need to see your doctor that you will see regularly, and that can serve all your needs. And sometimes you're in need with a specialist. So, I like this the way, it's very clear. It's simple and it clarifies a lot the market, because we see a lot of marketing messages that sometimes make it a little bit complex on the market. So we're seeing very frequently this use case, and as Sven said, depending on the level of sophistication, of complexity, we see frequently this situation where we see one of the best LMS, and on the top of that, another specialist for the learner experience. Some name themselves learning experience or something like that. We at Training Orchestra, we're the back end, the training management system. So that's 3 components that may be important for some clients with enough sophistication. And usually the client, when they buy an LMS, a learning management system, they also think that one size fits all and that they will find everything that they need end to end. That's true. And at the same time, there is a need for if there is enough sophistication, there is a need for a specialist. So that's what we see, Sven and Jennifer.
Right. Thank you, Stephan. Thank you, Sven. I want to expand on this just a little bit more, and in particular about how all of us, the training operations and technology, how it relates to training for the extended enterprise. So training that extends beyond internal employees to an external audience of, say, your customers, partners, distributors, or even event members. Sven?
Yeah, I guess so. Extended enterprise is a case that is around for quite a long time already, that scenario, to extend it beyond your internal employees. It does require specific management. Some organizations have therefore built a separate kind of extended enterprise learning technology ecosystem altogether for their organization. Some others manage it maybe all in one, but many also have for internal staff something else. So I guess the underlying issue or problem, some of the learning systems have particularly been designed for this internal learning use cases with that in mind, and they are not maybe necessarily designed to work for these external audiences. Some, yeah. In other cases, the issue is maybe the corporation has introduced a learning management system a while back, and they have configured the learning system in a certain way so that it is really well tailored for the internal staff. But now they kind of need to reconfigure it all to work also for that external enterprise scenario. And that can be quite problematic in some cases. So then sometimes it's easier to separate the things, although it's not impossible. So advice, I guess, from our side is usually to look at this from the very beginning, if you can. If you have obviously an existing landscape, you have to live with what you have and evolve that from going forward. So I guess that is really important. And I mean, it is becoming more important, right? So training clients, training partners, you need to sell the training, they need to sell your product. So it has an impact on your revenue. So that obviously is becoming more important also during these economically more challenging times. And I guess ideally, as I said, maybe think about this in advance if you can, or kind of think about this as 2 kind of ecosystems that can work independently if you have already something in place potentially. Stephan, maybe something from your side to add to that?
So I think that I'm fully aligned with what you just said, Sven. What is interesting is that we see a lot in the DACH market of extended enterprise, so client education, partner education. By the way, I really like the way Fosway has defined the extended enterprise, which would be any learner outside of payroll. It's crystal clear. So partner education, client education, training business, temporary workers, so our extended enterprise, and everybody's talking about upskilling, reskilling, but today what is important for having a successful company is skilling the entire ecosystem. For a large aircraft company, when they sell a plane, they need to properly train their clients because their clients are using their product every day. So it's not just the skilling of the employees, it's skilling the entire ecosystem. So this question of extended enterprise is really important. Obviously, by a functional standpoint, it requires requires different capabilities, and some capabilities like selling training are very important, because you need then to suddenly manage price lists, multiple price lists in different currency. Do you sell at the same price in Germany? Yes, it's in euro, or in Portugal, it's also in euro. So price list strategy, managing an ordering process. What are the products that you sell? Are you selling seats in public classes, or are you selling private classes? Invoicing, profitability, for-profit center, most of the time, it's also a good way to turn a cost center in a for-profit center to be close of the extending enterprise. How do you collaborate with clients, versus the way you collaborate with a learner or internal learner? So that's by a functional standpoint. Obviously, the need is completely different, and also you need to connect to completely different system. When you serve employee only, and you're doing employee education, you need to connect with your HRIS, full stop. Maybe there are some other, but when it's client training, you need to connect to a CRM, you need to connect to a website, you need to connect to an accounting system, to an invoice system, finance system. So it's really different. The capabilities are completely different, and by a technology standpoint, we don't necessarily see the same vendor on both sides. So that's very interesting. But, DACH is a very specific market, I think, Jennifer and Sven.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you, Stephan. So we talked a little bit about training operations. We talked about technology. I'd like to zero in now a little bit more on the evolution of in-presence training. And in the DACH market, the percentage of instructor-led or in-presence training is about 70 to 80%. So that's pretty significant. So how are you seeing in-presence training, or ILT, evolve in the market, especially after the pandemic in this more difficult global economy? Stephan?
Yes, no, it's a very good question, Jennifer. Thank you for asking. So first of all, Training Orchestra manages instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training, and we have a strong presence in 100 countries. So we see the difference between the different regions, and also the similarities. If I start with the difference, I think that on the DACH market, in-person learning is more dominant than in some other market, like, for example, North America. Obviously, with the pandemic, in one night, the entire market has to switch from instructor-led training to virtual instructor-led training. But as of today, we're seeing a lot of hybrid situation. Hybrid, in the definition, is a mix of instructor-led training or in-presence training and virtual in-presence training. But they also, we're seeing this market, the DACH market, being at the forefront of those hybrid capabilities to be trained. We have also seen a boom in the amount of in-person learning since the end of the pandemic. It's because everybody wanted to meet in person, and it was a long time. Another difference is the extending enterprise. On the extending enterprise, partner education, client education, we see so the training of the entire ecosystem is more important than in some other region. Why? Because we're seeing a lot of tech companies doing product training. It's true that this market is offering to the entire world a very advanced product. So product education is really, a culture on the DACH market. It's not always the case. I don't want to name, countries, but, from south of Europe or west of Europe, or, where this culture is led. So it's a big difference that we see. Plus, companies are more global. It's the case also in North America, but German and DACH region companies are usually global. So they are seeing, they are in need of the capabilities to manage at a global scale the training operation. Also, as they are selling complex product, we see a lot of certification, refreshing, expiration. So even if it's not a highly regulated market, you don't have a strong regulation like you can have in South Africa or in Spain or some other countries, still there is a lot of certification and refreshing. On the similarities side, I think that we see the same technology problem or learning technology problem that the one you will find in France, in UK, or in North America. First is that the learner experience can be improved, so we're talking about the learner or learning experience platform before as a specialist. Still the instructor-led training, virtual instructor-led training. So in-presence training is managed manually with a lot of Excel spreadsheet and Outlook or Google spreadsheet. And instructor collaboration is still happening with phone call, emails. Then are you available? And it's okay if you have 2, 3, 10 trainers. What about if you have 100, 500, 1,000 subject matter experts spread out globally with a lot of specialists? But I know that at Fosway, Sven, you know extremely well the DACH market, but you also have an amazing vision on the global market. So what's your analyst view on the learning market? What's so specific with the DACH market according to your expertise?
Yeah, I guess so. Overall, we look at the EMEA market as a whole in a certain way that I guess since the pandemic, which was obviously a challenging year for instructor-led, since the pandemic, the budgets have always kind of grown and increased for corporate. So there was more investment going into learning overall. Maybe even in Germany, there was now more into digital, more into virtual as a necessity. So certainly I agree that Germany was slower to digitize for sure. But 2023 now actually with the recession that we see and the disruption from geopolitical conflict and so on is actually now a more challenging year for learning budgets for corporates, right? So maybe the worst year in 6 years that we've seen. So definitely an area where L&D teams need to focus on value and certainly getting ready for the future. So these are important themes for Germany as well. I'll come back to that. I guess from the pandemic now, we also are seeing that 42% of L&D teams are thinking that there is a certain level of digital learning fatigue and it's becoming more of a problem. So I guess overall, we are seeing a little bit of rebalance into in-presence training, virtual or not. So also in our latest research, we have obviously looked at what has the biggest impact on closing skill gaps. And this is really important for Germany. Because Germany, from the economic standpoint, is in a situation where we have very strong Mittelstand companies, automotive, it's obviously a very strong sector, but these sectors are undergoing a huge change. So as we know from our research, formal training and face-to-face events is seen as having the biggest impact on skill gaps, right? Closing them, upskilling, reskilling, these are among the top priorities for businesses in DACH region. So budgets centered around these kind of initiatives are potentially still a little bit easier to get through, right? So I guess that is important. But also our data shows that there's continued interest in blended learning. So, I mean, don't think of this as a one-dimensional answer. It's more important to see approaches where it's not just a standalone, but it's part of a mix of modalities. And so that you create a learner experience that is most effective and most valuable during this time. So L&D foremost during this time needs to be flexible to adjust to the speed that organizations need to move at. And in Germany, we were slow to digitize. Germany, if you follow the political discussion, there's now on the governmental level a lot of initiatives that half-fly. Some say it's good, some it's not so good. So in the corporate world, this has been quite similar, and also learning was fairly low, but it has been picking up since the pandemic. And I guess that is now at a point where this upskilling, reskilling is really quite important for German organizations. So definitely something that is of relevance here. And there's certainly industries which are more affected by this. Like I said, the automotive industry. Germany, I think, is a very rational market, right? So we are all kind of concerned about cost and, you know, getting a good ROI on these kind of things, being efficient. I mean, these are all like the typical things when you think about Germany, right? And it's true, right? And it's also applying to German learning. For example, the digital learning content is sometimes maybe not, there's probably a maturity gap if you look at this more on an international level. Organizations are struggling sometimes to engage learners into that digital learning content. So that's also why there's always an easier way to swing back into in-presence, because that is what companies and people are used to doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's you know, it's yeah, and what I would say, what I would add maybe is that it's true absolutely that the Germany is an ROI market, a return on investment market, you know, very rational market, you know. So bring me the proof. You know, bring me the proof that it works. So I think it's a very serious way to take it. So this market is probably less attracted by some shiny object that have not yet demonstrated, you know, or proven anything, you know. Some market will adopt really quickly. And get rid of very quickly. The German market is very rational, so you know, proving and then deploying, scaling. So we see obviously that instructor-led training, virtual in-presence training is pretty big, and we're you know, seeing companies choosing the efficiencies of managing really well the training operation, you know, because they export a lot and they have to serve global client, so they have to scale. Their instructor obviously travel a lot, and they have expert in Germany. So it's also a very big subject to manage properly and make the most of those strategic resources. And they have been very early adopters of virtual classroom and hybrid model. So still they are on the forefront. This market is at the forefront, but it's really proving, I would say, and demonstrating the ROI that is a particularity that is extremely interesting, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. So in-presence training, we can see it's definitely alive and well. And that brings us to another topic, and that is the learning technology that's behind it all. So let's look at the learning technology stack. Stephan, from what you're seeing with working with the organizations within the DACH market, are they utilizing different learning technologies compared to their international counterparts?
Yes, no, I would say that first of all, usually the organization have the one of the best learning management system. You know, so the big brands are the same wherever you are, and they are global. No, even if you have strong local vendors. But you know, the learning stack does not surprise someone from UK, learning director or the CEO of a training business, or an association based in UK, in Canada, in France, or in Spain, because the big learning management system will be the same. The market, I would say, more than anywhere else, is looking to have one only system for learning, you know, because, you know, ERP has been invented in the DACH region, you know, so it creates, I think, two very big expectations gap, you know, and there is a kind of misunderstanding, you know, because this market is looking for a one system, you know, because SAP has been invented years and years ago, and it was a one system to run all the operation. So that's a big expectation. So they expect one system to manage both employee training and client partner education, while it's, as of today, different learning system, you know, so they will have, you know, not necessarily the same LMS being good at both, you know. Second expectation gap, I think, is that they would expect one system to manage instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training in one end, so in-presence training and e-learning. So they buy a learning management system, usually hoping that they will manage everything in one system, but the LMS have been designed for learner, they have been designed for e-learning, and still, you know, they have to manage manually in Excel spreadsheet the training operation operation, like scheduling, finding the best available trainer, tracking the cost, and you know, it's not where they would expect by a level of productivity and efficiency standpoint. Second, I would say that the user experience, we're a lot talking about the user experience, confusing the learner experience and the user experience, because the back office user deserve a good experience too. And this experience is not always here. You know, they have hundreds of clicks and it's usually a problem. And also instructor collaboration, we have already mentioned the subject where, you know, it's manual. We are seeing Excel spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet, everyone, you know, listing, okay, Sven can train on that, Jennifer on this, Jennifer speaks Spanish, and etc. And it's a lot of manual inefficiency, phone calls, Sven, are you available? And so there is a really expectation gap with the one system. So I think that for clarity, you know, LMS could be called an e-learning management system more than a learning management system or learner management system, because they manage very well the learner, that's their mission, and they manage very well the employee. So it's mostly system for learner and internal audience, and there is this expectation that they would manage also external audience at the same time, so like client, partner, and that they would manage instructor-led training and virtual instructor-led training. So what does it answer to your question, Jen?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Stephan. Stephan, what are you seeing at Fosway first from a pure technology perspective, and then expanding into the entire learning ecosystem, learning technology ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the DACH market is probably the #2 market in Europe for most learning system vendors. So the international players have certainly built presence, built momentum in the market, and are also from a brand recognition perspective visible here on in the various events and so on. And there is certainly a local market with local providers that exist. So some local players, both on the suite and maybe also on the specialist side. There's certainly also very big players who have started here and have taken that international. There's maybe a few actually also who are aspiring to become a bit more international and moving out of the country. So there's a lot of, I guess, knowledge that they have with German organizations, with manufacturing companies, with those, blue chip hidden champions that nobody has heard of because they're just doing some screws or whatever. But they are really the global market leader for this. And I think that is an experience that they are then using into their system and bringing that into other markets. So I think it's an interesting market. From what they are using, certainly as it's the same similar players to what you would see internationally. As I said, there's a local sub-market, but I think a lot of the companies in the past years have spent a lot of effort in digitizing, put a lot of money into that and digitizing the learning more. So introduced, virtual instructor-led kind of things, or introduced virtual classrooms, those kind of technologies. So maybe that was at the expense of what they have done for the back office, the training operations kind of systems. And if you want to kind of simultaneously impact learning adoption and ROI, then you need to have multiple things in place that can help you build out the skills, that gives you an efficient way of delivering things and blending them together. So I think that is really an important point for Germany, for organizations headquartered here in Germany. I guess room for improvement is there as well. Many have maybe started to manage their training in Excel, and like those, I still remember these big wall charts on the wall where they had all the plans and all the resources and little stickers and moving that around. And that obviously technology is now able to fully support and automate and infuse AI into that planning process. So that's a big opportunity for some organizations who haven't gone down that route to automate. GDPR compliance is a big topic. So I guess that is the first question most German organizations will ask, is it GDPR compliant? And so that is really an important point when, I guess, doing business over here, that vendors are proven and tested into that space as well. So many have maybe bought some systems more on the shinier side of things, and maybe have not so much worried about the back office. And I think it's maybe now a time again also to look at how to optimize and get the efficiencies going, because obviously of the economic situation, it's quite an important one as well.
So Sven, can you elaborate a little bit on the specific challenges and opportunities that organizations face in managing operations and how a training management system can help?
Yeah, I mean, it's the day-to-day, like it's like the payroll part, right? It has to work, it has to be the engine room that has to run smoothly and all of that. So it's around efficiencies. And I guess if we took a look at it from a Germany perspective again, Jen, then certainly there's a lot of companies in the manufacturing world. So the ISO certification that they need is critical for their business success. So they have a lot of compliance training, a lot of certifications that they need to do. So the famous German word Unterweisung is one that is almost always done in person. And companies often even use specialized solutions here to track this, to ensure that all the relevant staff are properly trained, so that they get their ISO certification back. And I guess that is really important. The other thing, because they're manufacturing companies, they're also often looking after the distribution of their products. There's a lot of knowledge involved that they need to upskill their distributors, their partners, that maybe some dealerships or whatever. Think about whatever cars, think about heat pumps, think about, I don't know, garage doors. All these kind of products need specially trained people to install them, to maintain them, to service them. And this is really something where you need a professional solution to help you do this kind of stuff. And that is more closely linked to business operations, to the sales teams in the organizations. It's maybe not as much linked to HR. So I think that is why many German organizations are also maybe taking a bit of a different organizational approach, is how to organize these kind of things, and why they maybe also have different kind of systems.
And Stephan, so Training Orchestra has been a part of the training operation, or in the business of training operations for many, many years, and is a specialist in this area. So how does the TMS, the training management system, cater to these needs?
Yeah, that's a great question, and more than ever there is a need to rationalize the training investment as of today, and instructor-led training in presence or virtual instructor-led training is represent a very big a portion of the training investment, 70 to 80%. So obviously what is really important is all about optimizing the scheduling of the session and making the most of the strategic resources. We have rare resources like trainers with unique capabilities, and that's making the most of those strategic resources. Also being able to detect and engage the best available instructors and experts. Managing a pool of full-time dedicated instructors is different than managing a pool of subject matter experts that you will use from time to time. But detecting, engaging, collaborating with these instructors is absolutely key. And reducing the complexity of the training operation, a lot of manual tasks that could be industrialized, that could be automated. We can absolutely increase the productivity and rationalize the training investment, because it's a big, large investment. So we have, instead of managing that in Excel spreadsheet and Outlook, we need to forecast, track, follow where we are exactly, and make a better business decision based on more accurate data. Also optimizing the financial performance. We're talking about the extended enterprise, client education, partner education. So it could be for profit, so it's part of the financial and performance, and also better collaborate with your trainer and subject matter experts. Phone call is great, obviously. Phone has been invented, some years ago, but there are also better ways to collaborate and communicate with them, better than the email, better than the phone, and that's absolutely something that Training Orchestra can serve.
Great, thank you. And Sven, we'd love to hear from you. We're about to wrap this up, and just to finish with your final thoughts on the future of training operations and how organizations can stay ahead.
Yeah, I guess so. At the moment, there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. Whenever I turn on the news program in the evening, there's some report about AI. And I guess that is certainly something that training operations teams should be looking at as well. Stephan mentioned already the potential to automate, to simplify, to gain efficiencies. I think that is a big part where AI can be infused, and it is currently infused in vendor solutions for sure. I guess in the learning world, I mean, having been at LearnTech and Learning Technologies, so both the German and the UK kind of events, there was a lot of talk about AI and how it would influence digital learning content creation, how that would all get cheaper and more efficient and all of that. But I think as a training team, as a training operations team, ask yourself, what are the skills your organization will need in the future, right? Because the AI is also, this generative AI kind of hype is going to affect your organization as a whole. So how are the skills changing for the people working in your organization? How is the business going to get transformed to that? Have that conversation with your executive suite and talk to them about how they see this, and build key initiatives to create those skills now, because they are horribly expensive if you borrow them on the market. Hiring them is also difficult and expensive. So your best route is probably through education, training, and upskilling. So definitely something that I would focus my time on in training operations is to also look at the skills that are needed for the future. So in terms of the needs analysis, look at what you need to build out, have those conversations. I think that will future-proof your organization, and then look at AI also to gain efficiencies on the in automation, in the administrative processes, in the planning process, and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's some really great insights today. Thank you, Stephan, and thank you, Sven, for generously sharing your expertise and perspective with us today.
Thank you, Sven. Thank you, Jennifer.
Have a good day. Thank you both.
All right.
Have a good day.